All right, we'll remind the listeners of the New Indy Nation, we're talking to Irv Smith, Notre Dame tight end, 89-92, and the first-round pick of the Saints in 1993. Irv, I love to ask always, when you mentioned the schools are recruiting you, USC, Powers, Florida State, you're coming out of New Jersey. What sold you on Notre Dame as a high school senior that made you want to go play for Lou Holtz in South Bend?
Well, let me tell you a true story. When I was coming out of high school in 1989, I was looking at USC, UCLA, Florida State, Clemson, and believe it or not, Auburn was my fifth choice. Notre Dame, the problem with Notre Dame at that time was they had a tight end by the name of Derek Brown, who was a perennial All-American as a freshman, and I knew that if I go to Notre Dame, I'm going to sit on the bench for 3 years. So Notre Dame was actually my sixth choice, and I was supposed to go to University of Auburn as my fifth choice, which meant I wouldn't have never taken a trip to Notre Dame because you only get 5 official visits. Well, the week of my Auburn trip, which was my last trip, I get a phone call from the coaches at Auburn, and Pat Dye Sr. actually at that time was the head coach, and it's kind of funny because you fast forward, and years later his son, Pat Dye Jr., was my agent in the NFL. But I get a call from Auburn, and they tell me that they didn't have a scholarship for me. They had signed 2 tight ends from the state of Alabama already, and they literally did not have a scholarship for me at Auburn. And I was pretty much heartbroken at that point, and I had decided at that point I'm going to go to Clemson University. The reason Clemson, because I'm a 17-year-old kid. I didn't want to go too far from home. USC, UCLA were too far. Florida State, I didn't want to go to Florida State for whatever reason. I chose Clemson. Well, Notre Dame got word of it, and they knew that I had one more visit left. Vinny Serrato and, of course, Coach Holtz were the two that knew that I had a visit left. And they called me that week and said, Irv, you have one more trip left. We were your number 6 team. Just come to the school. I literally committed to go to the University of Clemson verbally that Friday morning that I took my trip to Notre Dame that Friday afternoon. And, of course, the entire campus, Notre Dame, Lou Holtz, they all knew I committed to Clemson. It wasn't like a secret. I told them I'm going to Clemson University. I'm going to come here for a trip just to appease you guys and just get a free trip because I'm a 17-year-old kid and I love to travel for free. I go to the campus at Notre Dame, and it blew me away. They knew what they were doing. They set me up because they knew once I got on that campus, it was going to be all over. And the funny thing was Clemson University asked me to not go on that trip when I committed. They said, Irv, please do not go. I couldn't understand why they didn't want me to go so bad because I said, look, you're not paying for it. It's not going to come out your pocket, so why are you worried about me going on this free trip? When I went to that trip, I spent time with Derek Brown. I spent time with Rodney Culver. We called him Cookie. And I spent time with some of the guys on the campus that played football for Notre Dame. And all they talked to me about was how Notre Dame would impact my life forever. Had nothing to do with football. And the other 4 schools I tripped to, USC, UCLA, Florida State, Clemson, all those football players talked to me about was football. And I realized there was something so different about Notre Dame, and not just Notre Dame, but the student athletes that played football there. I said to myself, if I don't go to this school, there's something wrong with me. I got back from my trip from Notre Dame. I called up Clemson. I told them I wasn't going to go to Clemson. I told my mom and dad I'm going to Notre Dame, and the rest is history.